And in this transformative episode of Victim to Victor, we welcome Christopher Richards, the founder of Atomic Growth, to explore the profound impact of micro shifts in leadership, business, and personal growth. With a career spanning from criminal intelligence for the Royal Military Police to corporate leadership for FTSE 250 companies, Chris brings a wealth of experience in navigating complex environments and empowering others to break through barriers. As a CBT hypnotherapist and leadership strategist, Chris developed the RISE framework, a powerful tool designed to help entrepreneurs dismantle limiting beliefs and unlock their full potential. In this conversation, he shares his insights on self leadership, adaptive leadership styles, and how small intentional shifts can drive extraordinary outcomes. So, if you're an entrepreneur striving to scale your business, overcome self doubt, and lead with confidence, this episode is a must listen. Welcome to the show, Chris. Such an honor to have you here.
Hello, Anu. Thank you so much for the introduction. How are
Um,
you?
Really good, thank you. Really excited to get stuck into today's episode and find out a bit about you, Chris. So, what led you to start this amazing journey that you're on today and helping other leaders to fulfill their potentials?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, what started it? Trauma. It's like the same reason why I'm so funny. Yeah, so like many entrepreneurs, business owners, I had a fairly rough childhood. Um, but through the kind of the healing, the growth of it, well after the military career. um, I started really digging into a lot of therapies and various healing techniques and tools. Um, I just started unlocking these abilities to heal. And one thing I learned about myself on that path was that I'm exceptionally good at spotting patterns, and recognizing, where to make one little shift here and how it has this knock-on effect to everywhere else. Um, Once I got into coaching and consulting, it was strange, I would be in circumstances and situations where I'd be like, well, of course it's this, and if you change this, it's going to have a knock-on effect to this, that, and this. Um, and I was kind of surrounded by therapists and other coaches who didn't see it as clearly as that, and they were like, well, how does it link in? And I'd explain it, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, I never thought of it like that." Um, and so this kind of journey of discovery, if you like, ranging from the kind of head stuff is where I started with the CBT stuff, understanding the cognitive connections that we make and how our thought processes work and the triggers and various schemas and things that knock us into various behaviors. But as I was kind of going through that journey, I was seeing how much wasn't being included. Um, and so this idea of holistic therapy is thrown around a lot, but everything I looked at wasn't really holistic. It was either mind and a bit of body, or a lot of body and a lot of somatics and a bit of mind, or it was entirely habit based and kind of do the thing, um, with a little bit of the kind of mindset and affirmations with it. But there was no real holistic approach that covered all the four main areas. But not just that, even if they did cover one or two of them, they weren't connecting them. They weren't showing how, your gut health impacts your mind and your hormones, and how your daily rituals and how much sunlight you get a week, you know, impacts things. And there was just so much that was missing. And so, yeah, so as I went through my own healing journey, I started getting a taste for it. I studied under, John Maxwell for leadership coaching. I got my first accreditations there. Then I went into CBT and hypnotherapy. Um, and then I kind of just kept adding strings to the bow. from there. And I've just been adding things and adding things. And anytime I went through something and it created a big shift in me, I was like, "Ooh, how do you do this?" And I went out and I did the courses and took the and did the things to learn it and kept adding on information. But each time I did, I was always asking the question, how does this link to everything else? Because in my belief, there is no system within us um, that is completely cut off from any other. It's all interlinked, which is why when you change one thing, you can change many things, and why if you can change many things but miss one, it causes a massive issue.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And so, what's the work that you do today with leaders?
Oh, so primarily it's with business owners, entrepreneurs, and the like, as you introduced.
Mm.
So the main thing we go into is really the self-leadership more than anything else. The initially we go into self-leadership because although yes, you can learn leadership skills, conflict resolution, time management, and we cover all of those, of course. But the biggest part of leadership when you're reaching kind of when you're going from six-figure years to six-figure months, and seven-figure businesses, eight-figure businesses, and so on, the biggest block becomes you, becomes the leader. And it's incredible the amount of seven-figure businesses that not just are they themselves holding them back, but there's all kinds of these unresolved personal issues that don't get addressed, and you end up with these really successful business people who haven't paid themselves, don't really do anything for themselves, will do everything for other people, but won't look after themselves very much. They'll do the absolute minimum, or they'll have these fears around, what if the team starts to dislike them? What if they don't do it right? Um, because the more successful you become in business, the higher the consequences of your decisions. Which means the just do it approach just doesn't work at that kind of level, because it's like, well, I would just do it, except if I get it wrong, I've got to lay off half my team, and the business might start to dismantle, and I don't want to get it wrong. And so all of these fears, it's like fear of failure and fear of judgment, but it's on steroids at this point. Um, and so yeah, by that point, you don't need a doctor, you need a surgeon. And that's kind of what I do is I go in and I look at the areas that maybe other practitioners or other people have missed, or maybe they've healed to a certain extent, but not really fully taught that regulation and interconnection and all these things. So yeah, that's essentially what I'm doing with them.
Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so you emphasize the power of micro shifts. So what does that actually mean? And why are small changes so impactful in leadership and business?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make is that they try to create these huge shifts, or rather, they think they need to create these big shifts. And very rarely is that the case. Um, Nine times out of 10, it's like one belief, one story, one memory that latched on from, early childhood or whatever, or one relationship from childhood, or, that is now metastasized into a variety of coping mechanisms and a variety of behaviors that you now call your identity and who you are. But actually, many of them are very, very unhealthy. And so when I talk about micro shifts, I mean, I briefly alluded to the whole surgery approach, is going in and tracing all those behaviors and the coping mechanisms and all of that back to one particular area or one specific change that needs to make that shift. And then all you really need to do is create the environment, the support structures, etc., to reinforce that change. and make sure that it continues to grow and sustains. Because anyone can make the change. It's actually very easy, especially mindset changes. The body changes a lot harder, and the nervous system becomes a lot more difficult. But when it comes to a mindset shift, quite a lot of people can do that. But it's about how to make them stick, and how to really build in the habits and the rituals that and the environment to sustain it moving forward. Otherwise, you have to keep going back and back and back and back, and you've got to keep telling the same childhood story to 50 different coaches and therapists, because you never quite get over it, wondering why do I keep why do I keep butting up against the same problem every time? And the answer is because you're not really addressing it. You may be talking around it, you may be chipping away at it, but you haven't actually addressed it. And a lot of people mistake the symptoms for the problem. And that's a big, big issue that I see time and time again.
Oh, okay. So, and how can entrepreneurs actually implement these micro shifts to drive long-term success?
Well, it all depends on what the shift is.
Hmm.
For some people, they really need to learn how to trust themselves. They reach a certain level of, like I was saying before, they reach a certain level where the consequences and the stakes are so much higher, and their level of trust was more than enough getting started. It was fine going up to 100,000, per year, becoming a six-figure business owner, and that was okay too. Um, but then as they've kind of grown, the business will never grow beyond how much you trust yourself. Um, because as soon as you stop making decisions, the business will stall. And this is where a lot of people fall over. So one of the biggest shifts is teaching people how to trust themselves, teaching people how to deal with doubts when they come up, teaching them the difference between intrusive thoughts, and teaching them how to deal with intrusive thoughts and intrusive doubts, and all things like that. So there's a lot of psychoeducation that's involved. There's a lot of somatic work that's involved, teaching them how to connect to their bodies and attune to their bodies. Um, we look into, as I said, the daily rituals, habits that sustain it, and the environment, and the five key areas of the environment, um, that really build the surroundings that enable them and facilitate them to move forward.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you. And so you obviously created the RISE framework as well. So what inspired you to create this amazing framework, and how does it actually help entrepreneurs to break through limiting beliefs?
Yeah, so the RISE framework is really the amalgamation of my life's work. It's a complete system for self-mastery where the RISE, sorry, excuse me, the R stands for rituals. So that's your daily rituals, and there we look into clarity, commitment, consistency. Um, and that's not just a lot of people when they say rituals and habits, they think about, going to the gym, working out, eating healthily. But where they really miss it is a lot of people have rituals and habits of thought. They have habits of feeling. A lot of people will habitually feel negative emotions and kind of sit in them and let the emotions take over them. No, they are habits too. And so the first thing we do, think of it as the doing part. Rituals is the doing part. It's what are you doing every day? Where's your focus going every day? Do you have clarity? How clear are your goals? A lot of people who say they have clarity issues, actually have self-trust and fear issues, because when you have internal doubts and internal trust issues, the mind does this job of protecting us by clouding our awareness, and it doesn't feel like fear. That's the important part. I've heard time and time again, Oh, but I don't feel scared. It's like, no, you wouldn't, because you've trained yourself by this point in your career. You've trained yourself, feel the fear and do it anyway. And so if I'm your ego and I'm responsible for maintaining who you are, then why would I use fear? Because you're just going to feel it and do the thing anyway. I want to make sure you're safe. I want to make sure you don't do the thing that's potentially dangerous. Um, and so I'm going to give you something else instead. I'm going to give you an intellectual problem to solve that, requires a lot of thought and a lot of research and a lot of strategizing and all these things, which means you'll do a lot on the back end, but won't actually move forward. Um, so the rise, the R of rise, the rituals part, really highlights all those areas and all those habits that are holding you back. That's where we get the initial clarity. And that's just a start. So then we go into the I, which is identity. There we go into, your beliefs, values, meanings, stories. One of my favorite frameworks I ever created is the It's BS framework to find your story. And that's very simply, you can find almost any fear. If, then, because so. If this happens, or if I do this, then what could follow, not will follow, what could follow, then, if then, because, what's the justification? Like, why would you believe that? If you do this, then you do that. What's your justification? So that's the because. And then so what's your following behavior? If this, then that, because, it's the way it's been, or whatever justification you give it. So you end up doing something that you don't want to do. Um, so yeah, we go into the stories, we go into the beliefs, the frameworks, all of that, go into your attachments, um, all the parts that create you, or at least the cognitive part of you. So that's the identity phase. And the amount of people who don't move forward in their life or don't grow the business as large as they really want it to be, or don't have the relationships that they want to have, all because not of who they are, but who they're afraid that they're not, and who they're comparing themselves against. So they don't even have some people don't even have um, a strong attachment or a strong association to who they are. Um, and so they end up looking at what other people are doing and all of these things, and it just wrecks their momentum. Um, then we go into somatics, and that goes into, your feeling of safety in your body, your attunement to your body, to your feelings, your emotions, impulses. A lot of people spend a lot of time looking at their emotions, but don't realize that half the time when you're getting distracted and not doing the thing, it's not emotionally based, it's an impulse, it's an internal compulsion to do certain things. And you don't need big emotions. And so you're there looking for the emotions and trying to solve it through emotion or think your way out of it. And it's actually your nervous system that's just switching your focus away. And so somatics, the S in Rise is somatics. So we look into all of that. I also go into creating flow state, and empowerment through your body. So we do that as well. Like I said, this is the amalgamation of my life's work. Um, and then finally, you've got environment. And in environment, we go into your support structures, we go into consumption, we go into your external world, what's happening in your external environment every day. We go into norms, that's social, cultural, religious, familial, as your family norms. Things you've grown up with feeling like they were just normal, um, can form a huge part of who you are, and how you move in the world. And if you're over attached to who you used to be, then you can't move into who you're going to be. And then finally, you've got experiences. Now, the reason I put experience in environment is because that is anytime you're looking around at anything, you're looking at your own results, you're looking at other people, anything like that. You're looking at it through the filter of your own experience and your own beliefs. So you never actually see what it is, you see your perception of what it is. And so one of the most key parts of being able to take control of your environment is actually to be able to see it clearly, and be able to recognize where, emotional and mental bias and prejudices are coming in, where there could be some psyops from the media or whatever, and it's being skewed, and all of these things. So all together, and of course, I break it down and to make it so simple and so easy for people to pick up and learn and all of that. It sounds very complicated. It's actually extremely easy and fun that the way I've done it. Um, so by the end of it, you've got habits that are really locked in. You've got a really strong sense of identity. You've got a really strong sense of internal safety and attunement for your intuition and all of that. And your environment is locked down for exactly where you want to go. Um, Now, I don't know anyone who can lock in those four things and not then achieve literally anything you have in mind. If you've got those four things locked in, which is what I was saying at the beginning, that so many people they focus on one element or two elements at most, but they never focus on all four. And again, most importantly, how all four link together. Because your somatics impact your identity impacts your rituals impact your environment impacts your identity as well, and your somatics, and it's all of that. So they all link together, and you've got to know how they link and how you can make the most of it and how you can optimize it.
It's true. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that because healing is a holistic approach. And
Mm.
this, it's why even though the psychology of any form of therapy work that we do is important, it's also important to heal the body as well. So somatic healing is
Oh God,
tremendous.
yeah. The amount of times people are like, I know this is wrong, but
Mm,
I know the real answer, or where your therapist sits you down or whoever, and asks you a question of like, so what are you feeling right now? What are you thinking right now regularly? And the answers come back something similar to, you know, well, I know the right answer is that it shouldn't matter to me.
mm,
And the right answer is that I know the truth is that I am worthy and I intrinsically have worth,
mm.
and I shouldn't put my worth in the hands of other people, and I shouldn't worry about what they say about me. But, and the amount of times, it goes back to the early childhood trauma and stuff of people saying, I know my parents loved me, so why am I having these problems? And I was like, well, okay, they did, but that doesn't mean you received the love that you needed at the various stage in the ways that you needed. So just because, yes, they loved you and you can now look back and say they loved you, doesn't mean you received what you needed to receive from them. And it doesn't mean that you had the role that you were supposed to have at that age. So a lot of what I find a lot of healing and a lot of personal development is very heady. It's very cognitive. It's this idea around if you know enough, you'll be healed.
Mm.
Um, and the body just gets completely missed. The nervous system gets missed.
Yeah.
Environment. Do you know that the environment accounts for up to 50% of your personality at any one time?
Ah,
Almost 50%, because your mind is made to adapt to your environment, to adapt to the people that are around you. And you can ask yourself this, like, do you behave in the exact same ways
mm,
when you're hosting a podcast, when you're hanging out with friends, when if it's your thing, if you're going to church, if you're going to the club or going for a museum, do you behave in the same ways? And the answer is no.
yeah,
Your environment changes you.
interesting.
And more than that, even if the people around you are always speaking in various ways, and you're always consuming social media and there's certain people on your feed repeatedly, that's all going in. That's all being absorbed.
Ah,
Um, and so the amount of times people are like, well, I don't know why I feel so down about myself. And it's like, well, you could just be surrounded by douchebags. That's a very real possibility. Um, you could just be surrounded by awful people. And actually, there's nothing wrong with you. Or maybe you grew up and you're surrounded by constant criticism or maybe you're in a relationship and you've got a lot of criticism, a lot of judgment. And so you're sat there going, what's wrong with me? While all the time being told what's wrong with you, but never being told what's great about you, what's amazing about you, what the love and the incredibleness that you bring to the world. You can do all the affirmations and meditations you want. If you're surrounded by criticism and judgment, you're just not going to heal in that environment.
Yeah. Wow. And I think that's such a valid point because a lot of my listeners and clients, they're trauma survivors and they've been obviously brought up in these environments, in these households with toxic partners or,
Right.
toxic parents. And so that's going to have a huge impact on their ability to even heal or to even start to love themselves. So it's difficult for a lot to even get out of those environments, though, physically.
Yeah.
And so what would you kind of recommend for people in that scenario?
Well, here's where I divert from a lot of people online who will be like, "Well, just go."
Mm,
There's 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 an element of realism that I always put to my work, and some people aren't in a position
mm,
to suddenly change their environment. Where don't get me wrong, some people are absolutely in a position. I actually recently spoke to someone, not a paying client, but just someone who if someone crosses my path and we get talking, of course I'm going to help them.
yeah,
Um, and there was a story that she had, which was, oh, I can't, I can't because of this and this and this. I'm like, well, actually you can. And here's, so I can't do, what was it? That was it. So it was we spoke previously a little bit on the accepting, a lot of people aren't used to accepting
yeah,
good things for themselves,
true.
usually because they weren't given a lot of good things through their life. And if we aren't given it as a child, we learn that actually we didn't deserve to receive it. That's
Mm,
how we justify that. We don't say, no, no, they messed up. They should have given me that. They should have provided me a feeling that I deserve things like love and kindness and things like that, and not to deprioritize myself just because someone else could or might need it a little bit more, but actually say, what do I need as a human being? And I was talking to her and she said, well, I didn't want to put my name on this list to get my own place. Because what if there's a mother of three who needs it more than I do? And I said, so because of that, what if you're going to take away their choice, their ability, and this goes to relationships as well.
mm,
I'll talk about that in a sec. Just because you think that this could happen, you're going to take away their ability to take care of you.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're taking the choice away from them because you think it could happen.
yeah,
Their job is to decide and rank and prioritize things. And actually, from what you've just shared with me, you are 100% a high priority to be rehoused, domestic violence and all these things, or domestic abuse at least.
mm,
Um, I was like, you are 100% a priority to be moved. Um, but let's also look into something else. And we went through in one session, we went through, housing options that she had, and it turns out that she could 100% move within the month and set herself up with a much better life and environment. But the only thing that was holding her back was, I don't deserve that. And she didn't realize that that was the belief that was holding her back. She was thinking she's just being nice, and just being kind. And I don't want to be a burden. Oh, if I had a nickel, um, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to put people out. I don't want to take up too much space. I don't want to do too much. I hear these things over and over again, and they just scream, I don't believe I am worthy and I am worth giving love and kindness and compassion to. And whenever you have someone, and going back to relationships, and again, this doesn't have to happen to like low income people. I'm talking about some seven-figure, eight-figure business owners who behind the scenes just don't feel that they deserve it, or they worry that, if they buy that handbag or that jacket, and they're seen with it in the office, like, oh, what will my team think of me, and what will they judge me for, and what will they think? Like, well, hold on a minute. You do the work, you earned the money, you deserve it. Like, there is no other formula. Um,
True.
in relationships, you see it all the time when someone grows up without the love that they truly deserved, and the care that they truly deserved. They then get into a relationship and will do either one of two things, depending on, generally, one of two things, depending on who they have. They'll either find someone who mirrors what they had, which invariably is not particularly good. Because if you've grown up without a lot of love and affection, you'll find a partner who doesn't make you feel uncomfortable, which is to say, is familiar. The people talk about the comfort zone. It's actually the familiarity zone. And they're in their familiarity zone. But unfortunately, it's familiar because they're not receiving the love. They're not receiving attention. They're giving, 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 and getting scraps. But to them, that's normal. So they'll either do that and become, unfortunately, very unhappy, or they'll find someone who's just amazing. They'll find someone that they'll strike gold and invariably find a way to screw it up. Because unless they do the healing, of course, the healing and the growth is everything, absolutely everything. Ideally, do it before the relationship, but oftentimes the relationship itself raises these things to the surface. And so, you just needs must and you deal with it when it comes up.
Yeah.
Um, but they'll find someone who's really kind, really loving, lavishes affection on them. And their immediate impulse and the immediate feeling they have within themselves is what?
They just don't deserve it.
Yeah, intensely uncomfortable. This
Oh,
feels so foreign to me and so uncomfortable. And it creates what people don't realize is that if you have internal worth or trust issues and things like that, when you receive that which you've never received, or it could be about financials, you make money that you've never had before, or you create a level of status that you've never had before, people look up to you, you receive love in a relationship you've never had before, anything you've never had before, your body will react in the exact same way to if there was a legitimate threat. So you completely go into this fight and flight response, and what it feels like is it's like you get the ick from receiving love and affection. It's like, this is weird. I don't like it. You need to stop. And I've had relationships where I've been like, I was like, no, um, no, you deserve this. Like, this is the love I want to give you. It's like, but I haven't earned it. Why would you give this to me? I haven't done anything. I was like, oh my God. Um, and it's things like that of this mentality of I need to earn the love. I need to provide the value. And if I receive the love and I haven't provided that value, or if I haven't earned it in some way, or especially for women, I find that they're giving up your body, and being like, well, if I get this love, I've got to condone a whole bunch of behaviors that I don't truly want to do, or I don't truly want to be about myself. But I want the relationship to work, so that's what I do. And a loving, healthy partner will respect those boundaries. And more than that, a loving, healthy partner wants to know those boundaries because, I mean, how many times do women keep that to themselves? And the guy doesn't know, even if he's a healthy masculine man, he doesn't know. He can't read minds.
true.
So, these behaviors come out in these very subtle ways. Um, and all of it within that, almost every single time, tracks back to self-worth, self-trust, the value you deem yourself to be, the who you feel that you are, your identity, how settled your nervous system is, and how regulated your nervous system is. Um, how well, and regulated doesn't mean, I mean, but regulated doesn't mean that you're calm all of the time. Regulated means that you're able to process emotions and feelings and impulses as and when they come up. That's all regulated really means. And sometimes you can be a massive mess, just a train wreck with a dumpster fire on a train wreck. Um, if that's what you need to be in that one moment, if you need to let all that emotion out and you're just a mess, it honestly, it's actually one of the most beautiful things in the world.
Mm.
When someone's able just to let that out and just release all of that. Um, I have a lot of moments like that with my clients who've just held on to it for years.
It's a lot to hold on to, a lot of pain and suffering and just baggage that they just don't need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how does your background in CBT hypnotherapy help people to rewire their thinking for success?
Oh, well, that was one of the first things I started learning into. Of course, added more since, but CBT going into kind of the trigger, the end consequence, if you like, if this, then that, and then helping people to understand that internal blueprint, the internal belief system, and realizing like, okay, but if we lined up 15 people and gave them all the exact same situation, are they all going to behave in the exact same way? If the answer is no, then it's not about the trigger, it's about you. It's about your belief system, your blueprint, your feeling of who you are. And so that really created the starting block of where I set out. The hypnotherapy and various hypnosis techniques and things I've learned along the way. Um, that is actually one of my favorite things to do, is to have a conversation with someone and then receive a message 10 minutes or 30 minutes after we finish. And I've got so many of these where it's like, I don't know what the hell you did, but because we were just talking, it didn't feel like a therapy session. It didn't even feel like a deep coaching session. But for some reason, today, I genuinely don't give a shit about what people think of me. And I have been cooking on gas all day long. I've been knocking out my to-do list like it's nothing. I haven't had any resistance. I haven't had any distraction. Like, what did you do? Um, and it's very, very subtle ways that I have these conversations with people and how I word things. So I will quite often, and I do it almost subconsciously now. I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I will weave hypnotic suggestion into the question or into whatever we're talking about. And so by the time they finish, as long as I can have their attention, by the time we're finished, their subconscious, which is always listening, is why I talk about consumption in the environment phase. Um, their mind is always listening, and their body's always responding. And so when we have these very relaxed conversations and their body's very relaxed, that means their nervous system is relaxed and their guard is down. And when they're kind of in it, it's like when you're watching a movie and you're just in the movie, you're watching it and you're just completely absorbed by it. Um, I work it into the rhythm of my speech, well, the way I word things, how I do things. Um, and it's done in such a way that by the end of it, they're like, "What did you do to my brain?" I don't know what it was, but like I feel unstoppable now, and like I don't know what. Like I have no patience at all for anyone who thinks they could talk to me like that. Like who do they think they are? I'm an important person. I'm like, yes, you are. And it's like this thing came up, and I just was like, well, yeah, we're going to do this. And there was no hesitation. The time between information and decision was almost nothing. Um, I'm like, well, yeah, because that's what I do. Uh, and
Amazing.
And it's how, because all the changes really need to happen in the subconscious level, at the nervous system level. This is where a lot of people trip up, and this is where we touched on it before. I know this is the truth, but I know I shouldn't be afraid of this, but I know I shouldn't be worried about people's opinions, but um, and so I truly believe that the conscious mind is hugely, hugely overrated.
Mm.
In fact, I refer to it as it. If you can imagine these two people that's in charge of your brain, you've got the very quiet genius savant that's doing almost all the work, is doing virtually everything, and you've got your conscious mind, which is taking all the credit and doing very little. Um, a lot of corporate environments I've worked with. So, you've got your people at the back end who are doing all the work. They're regulating your heart, they're regulating your body, they're looking at everything that's going on around you and all this simultaneously. You don't even have to think about it. Your conscious mind is just there. It's almost ridiculous because it's just really there to specifically analyze very specific things. It's there to learn things that you didn't previously learn. Because as soon as, like a habit, as soon as you do it over and over again, eventually people say it becomes habit.
Mm.
But what they're really saying is it's been handed off to the subconscious. You've repeated it so much that now it's automatic and the subconscious can do all the automatic stuff.
Mm.
Your conscious mind can draw things from the subconscious, work on them, and then essentially put them back. It's your subconscious that is mostly the you part of you. And everyone's like, no, no, I'm a very conscious person. I'm like, no, you're not. It's like a flashlight in a massive stadium. You can shine it on one particular area, but you're definitely not going to hit the whole stadium.
Mm.
Um, and there's actually, oh, in fact, yeah, there's a metaphor that goes with this. Um, if we think of, it's been a while since I taught this, so let me see if I get it right. So the human conscious mind can handle around 2,000, 2 to 4,000 bits of information, let's say per second or per second. I think it's that. If we put that down to like kilometers, 2 to 4,000 kilometers, you can map that depending on where you are in the world. The subconscious, um, the equivalent distance of the amount of data processed is from Earth to Alpha Centauri, which is 4 light years away. That means you'd have to travel at the speed of light for 4 years to go the distance between us and Alpha Centauri, our closest neighboring star. That's the subconscious. The conscious mind is like here to Scotland, or if you're in the States, it's like Chicago to Florida, if that. And it's like, well, it's not exactly the same kind of distance, but we put so much weight on our conscious mind. And like I said, I'd have to double check the figures because it's been a long time since I taught that. But that is where it's at. Um, so the idea of this thing of like, I'm going to think my way through this solution, and if I focus enough, then I'll be able to change this or believe that. It just doesn't work. And so you can do your affirmations and your meditations, but if you don't deal with the specific things in your subconscious, it's just not going to change. And all you're going to end up doing, and this is what actually happens, is you end up being very, very frustrated. You get very annoyed and frustrated with things. Or, and unfortunately, I've seen this with some people, not clients, of course, but other people's clients. Um, where they've got to the point of like, oh, I guess this is just who I am then. I guess this is just who I am, and there's no, I'm never really going to change it. I've tried everything. And the amount of people who come to me who say they've tried everything, I'm like, well, this is the first time you've been a client of mine, so clearly you haven't. but it's like the mind will eventually say, I've tried everything, give up. And that is, in my opinion, the ultimate failure because at that point, you've given up on growth. You've given up on the change. And if essentially you've given up on yourself.
Yeah, it's true. Wow, amazing. That was quite touching. So, what can people do then to really rewire their subconscious mind? I mean, do they all have to seek like a hypnotherapist, or are there kind of techniques that you can advise that they do at home?
Well, hypnotherapy is just a tool in the toolbox. There's no one size super modality the one ring to bind them all. It's like there's no one thing that's going to solve all the problems. Specifically with hypnotherapy can be very, very useful. It can because it deals specifically with the subconscious. So hypnotherapy is very, very good. Um, it very much depends on what it is they're changing. Um, for instance, if it is, let's say, childhood trauma causing your nervous system to be on constant activation, where you are always in fight and flight, you're always hyper vigilant, and all of these things. Hypnotherapy will help a lot with the subconscious beliefs, but it won't provide the daily rituals and the daily habits and the teachings of how to regulate yourself when those feelings come up. So, yes, it can work very well to create an underlying feeling of strength and power and all these things. Um, but you also need the other stuff. You need to be able to understand what each emotion does. They're not there just for the sake of making you feel bad. Each one has a very specific job. Each one is trying to bring very specific messages to your attention. Um, and so, you can do all the hypnotherapy in the world, all the somatic work, nervous system work in the world. You need all the parts. That's why I teach it in the RISE framework. Um, so for someone to really build up self-trust, yes, doing small habits repeatedly, build up that self-trust. That helps a lot. If we're looking at the identity side of things, asking yourself, why not me, is a good exercise. And there's various exercises in for identity that ask yourself, what is it I'm really afraid of? What is the outcome that I'm trying to avoid? What is the feeling that I'm trying to avoid? Because a lot of blocks are because you're avoiding the feeling, which actually goes directly against you because almost every time you try to avoid pain, you create more pain. Um, and every time you operate out of fear, you create the thing you're afraid of because the behavior to avoid the thing creates it. Um, yeah, you know what I'm
Powerful.
talking.
That is powerful, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then somatics, learning meditations, somatic mindfulness, personal attunement, creating space for yourself to connect with your nervous system, all very important. And again, environment, coming back to what are you consuming on a daily basis, on a regular basis? Are you on social media, death scrolling all the time, or are you watching the news all the time, or watching negative media, or um, are you just surrounded by people who aren't supportive of you and or criticizing you or talking down about what you want to achieve and what you want to do in your life? Um, so looking at all of these things, and one of the main things that I provide, I'm actually putting out a brand new resource just for this. I'll make sure that you get it when you publish the episode.
Mm.
Is a personal audit of all of these areas. So you can actually look at yourself and go, oh, okay, where are my rituals? Where can I stand to improve? Where's my identity right now? Where can I stand to improve that? Is there beliefs and stuff that's holding me back here? Somatics, is there I'll put in stuff there to kind of test yourself on how connected to your intuition and your body are you really, and how much you can make it work for you, and obviously an audit of your environment. So yeah, I'll create that and I'll make sure you have that. I love creating these resources. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, Also, oh, we haven't touched on the five archetypes. There's actually, I create a quiz. It's on my website that anyone can do. It's 25 questions, takes a few minutes, and it actually assigns you an archetype, at least a primary and a secondary. But some people they score highly on 4 out of 5 of these, which means that there's potentially a lot of room for improvement. The higher you score, generally, the more healing and growth you really need. Um, it's just the way I've done it. And so you've got the quiz that will give you your archetype score. You'll either be marked as strategist, experimentalist, trailblazer, sage, or hero. Um, but you won't just, and this is where it differs from many other quizzes like this. You don't just get told you are a strategist. Because the truth is, all of us require all the traits of all the archetypes. If you can't strategize, you're not going to be a great business person. If you can't experiment, again, same thing. If you don't have that grit and determination of a trailblazer, you're not going to go very far. If you don't have the belief in your knowledge and your intelligence and your ability, like the sage does, you're not going to go very far. And if you don't truly believe in the cause and the purpose of what you're trying to achieve, you're not going to go very far. So everyone needs all the positive traits, but connected to every single one of these archetypes, strategist, experimentalist, trailblazer, sage, and hero, is underlying potential blocks. Are you just strategizing, planning, and not actually moving forward? Are you not a non-committal where you'll do one thing or do one offer, then change it, and then do one strategy and then change it, and work with this coach and do it their way, then work with that coach and do it their way, and you never actually pick a path and stick to it. Trailblazers are famous, infamous, in fact, for not taking care of themselves, for working all the hours and then wondering why they're burning out. Not their self-care and their, which obviously, like we talked about, comes from their feeling of worth and their deservingness of taking care of them. And so they put everything to other people and everything to the business, and everything is about moving forward, because the fear is, if I'm not moving forward, I become less valuable. I become less than, so there's that one. The sage is all about associating their value and their personal worth to how smart they are, how great they are, how good they are at their thing. So the sage, one of my clients put it perfectly. He said, "Oh my God, Chris, I've just realized I'm the smartest man in my basement." And I'm like, that's a breakthrough. Perfect. Yes. And this is what they are. They become the smartest person that no one's heard of, because they fear, well, at least when they have these blocks, they fear that being taken away. What if I put my ideas out there and they get shot down? What if I prove that I'm the imposter that I deep down fear that I could be? All these things. And then you've got the hero, otherwise known as kind of the caregiver, the caretaker. The hero is all about helping everyone else, but never, ever, ever themselves. Um, and so they get this habit of self-sacrifice uh, and people pleasing, and just doing everything for other people, but never asking for anything in return. And so they themselves become this person that's taking on all the responsibilities, and be like, no, 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 it's all right. I'll do that, and I'll do that, and I'll do that. And then they wonder why they're exhausted and they have no time for themselves. Well, they don't wonder why. They know exactly why, some of them. They know exactly why. They just don't know how to change it, because they think it's a habit problem, but actually it's a deeper self-worth problem and a deservingness problem. Yeah, so the quiz basically, within 25 questions, you know exactly where you stand.
Brilliant. Wow. Thank you so much. Amazing. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with my listeners. So, Chris, it's been so wonderful just hearing your insights and just the value that you bring to your clients and the world. I just think it's phenomenal the work that you're doing and, just these amazing, the framework that you created and, now this quiz as well with the audit.
With
So,
the
yeah.
archetypes, yeah.
Amazing. So, Chris, where can my listeners find you then?
Well, I'm on virtually all of the, I'll make sure you get all the links, but I'm on virtually all the social medias. So find me where you like to hang out, really. Or you can go to atomicgrowth.co.uk. That's the website. That's got all the links, all the free resources. It's being updated right now. Pardon me. It's being updated right now to include a lot more. Like I said, I'll make sure that free personal audit is in there very, very soon. Depending on when this show goes out, hopefully that should be ready in time. I can blast that out. That's fairly straightforward. Um, and yeah, so any of the social medias, happy to, send me friend requests, send me messages. I try to respond to as many as I can personally. Um, you can email me at chris@atomicgrowth.co.uk. Again, that email is on the website as well. Um, so yeah, it's you'll get all the links, but I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for people to find me now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chris. Again, it's been such an honor having you on. I really enjoyed this chat, and I know that my listeners will also find it extremely valuable. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
So that's all we have time for today, my beautiful people. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to message us or to add the questions in this episode chat box. We always love to hear from you. Until next episode, stay blessed, my friends. We love you.